Hi everybody, Steven here. In this video, we're going to talk about how to set up VMware Live Site Recovery or Site Recovery Manager, and it'll also show you how to install and set up the vSphere Replication appliance. So stick around. Hi everybody. So thanks for sticking around. So let's talk about how we're going to install and set up our Site Recovery Manager appliance, and I'll talk about the vSphere replication server as well, how we install that. Now, before we jump into it, I always like to throw this out at this point. Hey, if this is stuff that you're interested in, please support the channel by clicking that subscribe button. It's free, totally free. Just click on that, and again, it helps out. Also, I've noticed a lot of people are watching the videos, but I'm not getting a whole bunch of likes and stuff like that. And another way to support channel is by hitting that like button. Again, it helps out with the YouTube analytics. I also got super thanks enabled, totally up to you. But anyways, why don't we jump into it? So before we get started, I want to show you something here. Let's go on. This is how I got my site set up, all right? So I've already got, well, I'm calling it Site A and Site B. It doesn't really matter, okay? I've got a vCenter server on Site B and a vCenter server on Site A. You'll notice the name. This one's called Site A VCSA vCenter server appliance -01.vclass.local, and its IP is 172.20.10.94. On my Site B, again, I called that one SB, Site B vCenter server appliance VCSA-01.vclass.local, and its IP is on the 172.20.110 network. So everything on the left side is 110. This will be 10. So I've got no VMs running over here on Site B. I've got some VMs running on Site A. I'm using both vSAN as storage on both of mine. I might do a video later on. Right now, I talked about the storage replication adapter. If you haven't seen my first video on what Site Recovery Manager is, you need to watch that. I'm not going to be able to show this right now. I'm going to see if I can in a future video. But anyways, enough of that for now. What I'm going to do here is on Site B, you'll notice I've got my Site Recovery Manager appliance. There's its fully qualified domain name, sb-srm-01. Again, I don't have much of an imagination, and I actually like to use the same names we use in our lab environment, in the classroom environment, so in case I have to use my kit to do demos in classrooms, it follows along with the course material. That's the reason why I mimic that. You'll see its IP is 172.20.110.20. You'll see I've also have a replication, vSphere replication appliance deployed. This one's called Site B VR-01.vclass.local, and again, its IP is 172.20.110.25. I've already deployed these two in Site B and configured them. You don't need to worry about that. What we're going to do in this video is show you how to do it in Site A. So I'm going to deploy the Site Recovery Manager appliance, and I'm going to deploy the vSphere replication appliance. Technically, it really doesn't matter what order you do it in. I'm going to do the SRM appliance first, and then I'll do the vSphere replication appliance afterwards. So again, what you'll see me deploy here is this one, and it's going to be called Site A SRM-01 vClass.local. Its IP will be 172.20.10.20. My vCenter server, there's the vCenter server's fully qualified domain name, and that's where my platform services controller is. Later on we'll deploy this one. Okay, so that's what the whole that's what we're gonna do right now. So stick around. And by the way, hit that subscribe button and like. All right, so here's my environment. Here's my Site A. I do not have these vCenter servers set up in enhanced linked mode. You don't have to. It's not a requirement. It makes no difference. So here's my Site A. You'll see it says Site A cluster. I got some ESXi hosts. I've got some VMs. My Site B, if you click on that, you'll see there's a cluster over there, Site B cluster, some ESXi hosts, and I got my Site Recovery Manager appliance and vSphere replication appliance already deployed. And that's what we're going to do in Site A right now. Okay, so let's go and do that. Now, before I do that, what you need to do is you need to obtain the ISO for Site Recovery Manager and the vSphere replication appliance. So I've already got mine. Let me just go into here. So if I go into here, what am I looking for? My Site Recovery Manager appliance, and notice we're at version 9 here. That's what I'm using. It's an ISO. I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to say mount. I'm going to say open. So I've just mounted that ISO, and you'll see there's the directory of it. There's an update, there's a readme, whatever. I'm going to look at the bin folder, and you'll see there's the appliance right there. Okay, so let's right click on my cluster, deploy OVF template. I'm going to say it's a local file. I'm going to browse to that. I'm going to browse to that folder. There it is, my Site Recovery Manager. Let me select all these. I'm going to go open. Great. I'm going to go next. From there, it's asking me the name. This is the display name of the VM. I'm going to call mine Site A, SA-SRM-01. That's good enough for me. I'm going to click next. And then I'm going to pick the cluster it's going to go into. I'm going to click next. And it does a little bit of churning here, right? So that'll take a few seconds. Once we get this appliance deployed, it'll take a few minutes, a little bit more than a few minutes to deploy. Then we'll actually go in and do the replication appliance. So again, it gives me the review the details, whatever, shows me how much space it's going to take and whatever. I'm going to click on next. Again, read through the license agreement carefully, hit the accept if you agree. Now it's asking me the configuration. Remember, this is an appliance. It can either deploy with 2 virtual processors and 8 gigs of memory, or 4 virtual processors and 12. Generally speaking, if you're protecting anything under 1,000 VMs, 2 is fine. Anything more than that, 4 is what you need, right? If you're kind of getting close to that 1,000, I'd probably just make 4 to be on the safe side. So I'm going to click next. So going to do a small deployment environment. It's asking me, remember, this is an appliance. What data store do you want to put it on? I've got my vSAN data store, but you may have something else, right? So I'll pick my vSAN. I'll go next. Then it's asking you, what port group do you want to put this on? You want to put this on some kind of management port group on your in your vSphere environment. So if I click down here, I'm going to go to Browse. Now, I've got my VM network I should probably rename that to management. Actually, you know what? I'm going to pause this video, rename it, and then come back. All right? Okay, on this screen here now, this is where we customize the template. Do you want to enable SSH? I'll leave it up to you in your environment if you want to enable that or not. You would type in the passwords for root. Type in the passwords for the admin. From here, you type in your NTP servers. You'll see I've already got mine entered. Okay, so and then you type in the host name. This is the fully qualified domain name. File integrity flag. Doesn't really say much here. If you select this, if the binaries on this appliance get modified somehow, let's say a hacker got in there or something and changed things up, this will send alerts to your syslog server. In my lab environment, I don't care. I'm just going to be blowing this stuff away again. But probably in production, probably a good idea to leave that enabled. Your IP address, how do you want to set it up? IP4, IP6, or do you want to go, sorry, IP4, IP6. I'm going to go with IP4. Do you want to do static, DHCP, or auto config, where it'll basically look up do like a reverse lookup? I'm just going to say static. And then you come in and you type in the IP address of your gateway, which is kind of weird. You figure the first thing it's going to ask you for is the IP of the machine. So it'll be 172.20.10.10. Oops. Here's my gateway. What the domain name of this VM, the domain name is vclass.local. Class.local. And my domain searches vclass.local. And you can separate if you want to do more. Sorry about that. Right here is the search. Domain search path. vclass. Let's try that again. vclass.local. I could comma separate if I wanted to do other searches as well. And what that really means is if you're in SSH, let's say you're at the command prompt, you type in ping, and you just type in a short name, not the fully qualified domain name, it'll append these at the end, right? So anyways. My domain name servers, this is the IP addresses, 172.20.10.10. That's my domain name in my lab environment. I only got the one, so you'd probably put in multiple. Now, this is the IP address of this Site Recovery Manager appliance. So this is going to be 172.20.10.20 is mine, and the prefix is a 24-bit prefix. So you just check things over real quick. I'm going to click Next. At that point, I hit Finish. And you'll actually see it starts to deploy the appliance. This is going to take a little while to install. Probably, my environment, maybe 10 minutes. So I will basically let it run through. I'll probably speed this up, and then we'll come back. Okay, so it's deployed. There's an option there during deployment where I can see, and it was kind of scrolled off the screen. I didn't see it. For me to automatically power on the VM once it's deployed, I didn't select that. I'm going to power this on, and then I'm just going to wait. I'm going to give it a few minutes for it to come up. All right. Okay, we can see it's deployed and it's powered on. If I just launch the web console, this is basically all you see. Give it a few seconds. Really not a whole lot to look at, right? So let me actually close that. Now, what I need to do, that's deploying the appliance. I now need to configure it. I need to pair it with this vCenter server, okay? So I have to go into what we used to call the VAMI, vSphere Application Management Interface. I need to go into the management interface. Let me open a new tab. Let me type in https://site-a-srm-01, the fully qualified domain name of my Site Recovery Manager appliance, port 5480. That should sound very familiar from a vSphere or vCenter server perspective. I'm going to hit enter. It's going to ask me to log in. Notice it's the Site Recovery Manager appliance interface. So let's go into the admin and log in. And at that point, I'm not going to bother saving this. And it looks very similar to the vCenter server management interface. Notice right here, the first button says configure the appliance. Pretty straightforward. I'm going to click on configure the appliance. Now it's asking me for my platform services controller host name. So my vCenter server, I'm going to pair it with what platform services controller is it using. Now today we used to have like one platform service controller with multiple vCenters. Today it's just a one-to-one thing. So I'm just going to type in, mine is just one, so it's an embedded environment. So I'm going to type in site a-vCenter server appliance-01 vclass.local. That's where my platform services controller is. The username administrator vSphere.local. Again, that's my platform services controller administrator and its password. And I'm going to hit next. Now what it's going to do is look at that. It's going to come up, hey, you sure this is the one? Do you want to trust it? I'm going to click on connect. A lot of times you're used to click it over here. I've done that many times. I'm going to click on connect. And it looks and it says, these are the vCenter servers registered with me or associated with me. I only got one. There's my Site A vCenter server. So it's saying, do I want to pair it with this one? Yes, I do. I go next. And he says, so sure, there's the number for the thumbprint. Is that the proper one? I'll say, yes, it is. And then at that point, it's asking me the site name. You want to call it something that makes sense, not primary site, secondary site. You know what? You look at your environment, and it would probably be best to call it something like Toronto, HQ Toronto, or something like that, depending on what city you're in or whatever. Something that makes sense for you. Calling it what I'm going to call it site-A. Probably not a good idea. Again, who cares in my lab environment? But, you know, maybe this is my business. I got my Toronto location and Montreal location. So I might say location Toronto, location Montreal, or something like that, okay? Type in your administrator's email. Again, I don't really have one. I don't really care. I'm going to type in a bogus one here. This is a bogus email. My local host, this is my Site Recovery Manager. Yep, that's the one. Extension ID. What the heck is this? Now, if you're only doing a one-to-one, so let's say Steven's going Toronto, Montreal, that's it? Or Toronto to the cloud, whatever, that's it? Generally speaking, the default extension is fine. Remember I talked about Site Recovery Manager or DR as a service? Let me just show you. If you get into a situation like this, like something like this, where you're doing DR as a service, you got multiple SRMs, even like this, you want to have a custom extension for each one. So you pair them. They need to be paired together. So each pair will have the same extension type of thing, okay? Again, I don't need that in my environment. The default is fine. I'm going to click next. At that point, it gives me a summary, says it's ready to complete. I'll go finish. And this is going to take a few minutes. All right, so I'm just going to let this churn away for a while, and then we'll see what happens. Just want to point out something down the bottom right-hand corner there. Notice this is success, but that green bar is still going across. Always wait till that's completely done. So it's pretty much done at this point. Okay, I'll probably give it a few more seconds to make sure all services are up and running, but it's been configured. Okay, it's been configured. That's pretty much it. Again, you'll notice other stuff here in the configuration screen. I might do a separate video on this, but again, this is where you can do updating. If you want to do syslog, if you want to send it to syslog servers, that's fine. Storage replication adapters, I'll see if I can do a video on that, but this is where you would set it. Your time, again, time synchronization, networking, and so on, okay? I'm going to basically, I'm pretty much done here. I'm going to close this tab. Let's go back to Site A. Now, what I should do, since I've registered it with vCenter Server, one of the things I'm going to notice here, if I click on this, down at the bottom, I don't see anything with Site Recovery Manager. Okay? I'm going to close my browser. Actually, I'm going to close all those. Let's fire this up again. No, I don't want to do an update. Ah, bugger. There we go. Let's go to my Site A vCenter Server. Let's log back in. You have to give it a few seconds. Plugin Site Recovery Manager has been successfully deployed. Refresh browser to enable. Let me get rid of that. Refresh browser. So it installs a plugin now. Okay. Older versions, it was a little different. So the Site Recovery Manager actually has its own client now, whereas before it was directly integrated into the web client. Whether that was a good or bad idea, whatever. I'm going to go to here, drop down. You now see it, Site Recovery over here. Let's click on that. And you'll notice it says here, Site Recovery, it's okay. Like I say, Open Site Recovery. I'm not going to bother. If I click on Configure, that brings me back to that port 5480. I'll just click on it right there. Okay, I don't need to do that. What I want to do is I want to now deploy, I don't have to do this at this point. I could pair up my Site A and my Site B right now with Site Recovery Manager, but I'm going to deploy my vCenter, I'm going to deploy my vSphere replication appliance right now, okay? So let me, let's go back to here into inventory. Okay, I'm going to minimize this for a second. Here's my, go to my, you'll see the CD-ROM there. That's what I mounted for Site Recovery Manager. I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to say eject. Okay, so it's gone. Let's go into here now. Let's go into, I'm going to find my vSphere replicate. There's the vSphere replication ISO. Notice it's version 9 I'm playing with. I'm going to right click. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go mount. Where's mount? Right at the top. I'm going to say open. And you see it mounted. Very similar structure. I'm going to go into the bin folder. And you'll see there's a bunch of files here. When you're deploying this, remember I said you could deploy the manager, and the manager has the built-in server. And then once you deploy the manager, you deploy at least one of those. Then you can deploy optional servers, replication servers. That's what the add-on is, the replication servers after the fact, okay? So I'm just going to deploy. Let's go into here now. Let's right-click on my cluster. Same thing. This is going to look very familiar. Deploy OVF. Again, I'm going to go to that CD-ROM. I'll go to the bin. And again, you want to make sure you pick the right things here. So these are the files I need, not the add-ons. Okay, the add-ons is if I'm deploying supplemental servers. So if I was deploying, let's say I was deploying supplemental servers, get rid of those OVFs, add in the add-ons. That was what I would select to deploy just the server component. But we need to deploy that manager component, which has a built-in server. So you would deploy that. If you want to serve another server, then you deploy what I showed you before. So I'm going to select this, say open. I'm going to go next, and then it's asking me for the name of the appliance. So I'll call it Site A-V-01. That's good enough. I'll go next, and this is that part where I miss. If I scroll down here, automatically power on deploy VM. I'm going to select that this time around. I'll go next. Does the same thing. This is going to look very familiar. Okay. So we'll just let it churn away for a little bit there. Come on. And then it's going to go through, okay, it gives me some information on the appliance, how much space it's going to take up, all that. I'm going to go next. I'm going to read through the license agreement, obviously, right? Again, this is my lab environment, so I'll go next. What data store do I want to store this on? Again, my vSAN data store sounds fine. Pick yours. What port group? Again, I'm going to put this on my management port group. Now, yeah, let me browse this. I'm going to put it on my management port group. I'm going to say OK. Now, I'm going to go next. Now I got to fill in all these parameters. It looks very similar to Site Recovery Manager. Do I want to enable SSH? Totally up to you. Follow your security guidelines. I'm going to type in the root password. I'm going to type in the admin password. Scroll down. It's asking my NTP servers, 0.ca, whatever yours are, pool.ntp.org, comma separated, so the pool.ntp.org. What's the host name of this VM? Again, the fully qualified domain name. This is site a-vr vSphere replication-01.vclass.local. And I got my forward and reverse lookup set up on this. DNS is important. File integrity flag, same kind of thing as Site Recovery Manager. We talked about it. What version of IP do I want? Exactly the same as Site Recovery Manager. So I'm just going to pick static, and I'll put my default gateway here. That always throws me 172.20.10.10. My domain name for this VM, this is a fully qualified domain name, site a-vSphere replication-01, class.local domain name, and then the search, vclass.local. I don't like that there's a domain name of this VM. Every time I look at it, I think it's the fully qualified domain name. It's just the domain name. So I wish it just said domain name. Anyways, my domain servers, DNS servers, 172.20.10.10 is my DNS servers, and the IP address of this appliance, 172.20.10.25 in my environment. And again, it's a 24-bit mask. So I got a fully qualified domain name pointing to this address. And I'm going to click on next. And I'm going to click on finish. All right, so it's going to basically install, okay? And I'm just going to let that go. Now, one of the things, I'm just going to kind of mention this now. I may do a video on it later. I don't want to get too far into the weeds with this one. That appliance has one network interface. That appliance management and your VM traffic is going to go through that one interface. You might want to give it a second interface, one for management only, and the other one for all your vSphere replication traffic. That's a little different here. I'll probably do a video on that and pointing that out, because right now, when you set up replication for your VMs, your host is going to use VM kernel 0 for the replication. Probably a good idea to dedicate a separate VM kernel port for vSphere replication traffic. I'll probably do a separate video on that, but I'm just trying to keep things simple for now for those of you that are new to this, all right? But watch for probably an upcoming video on that. So I'm going to let this thing churn away and do its business. All right, we can see that it's deployed. If I go to the web console, you don't really see a whole lot of stuff there, okay? So let's kill that. Now let's see if it's up and running. Usually I like to give it a few minutes to make sure all services start, but I'm impatient today. So let's go into here. I'm going to go https://site a-vSphere-replication-01.vclass.local. That's my fully qualified domain name. And I'm going to go port 5480. Sounds familiar, right? And I'm going to hit, there we go. And I'll click on advance. I'm going to say continue. So it's got that self-signed certificate. That's why you get that warning. I'm going to type in admin and then my admin's password. And then it's very simple. Just deja vu, huh, folks? This is basically the exact same setup as Site Recovery Manager, right? So I'm going to configure the vSphere replication appliance. So I'm going to click on this. It's asking me, Kate, what vCenter server do I want to pair it with? So it's saying, all right, I need to talk to the platform services controller for that vCenter server, just like Site Recovery Manager. So mine's called site a-vcsa-01.vclass.local. And then my administrator, and next comes up, says, is that the right thumbprint? Sure is, I got it memorized. In the real world, you probably want to check that. And then here's the vCenter server. It's saying, all right, this platform service controller associated with that. So I'm going to pick that vCenter server. And then it says, here's the thumbprint. Great. And then over here, it's going to, what site? Again, this is site A. And then the administration email. Again, all this sounds very familiar, right? abc.com, whatever. This is the local host for my replication appliance. The extension, and again, traffic IP. This is optional. I'll probably do a separate video on this one, but I'm going to put this to the IP address of the interface, 172.20.10.25. And this is if you can give this appliance a second interface and say, just use this interface for the for the replication traffic, which you'd probably want to do. But again, in this video, I'm going to keep things really simple. I think it really depends on how much replication you're doing and stuff like that. So this way you're separating your management traffic and your replication traffic from the appliance. So I'm just going to say use this one and say next. Notice it says it's optional. I'm going to click next. Gives me ready to complete. I hit finished, and then it churns away. Oh, we got an error here. Close connection. Well, that error disappeared. Not sure what that was, but let's let it churn through and see what happens. All right, I always look down at that bottom right corner, see the green progress bars going across, then I always wait for that, and it's done, okay? Again, I always like to wait a few minutes, just in case there are any services starting, okay? As we're looking here, again, you can set up your syslog forwarding if you want to. You can do updates, you set up your NTP, all that stuff. I'm not sure what that error that I got was, but hey, let's see what happens. That's the first time I've seen that, to be honest with you. I am in a nested environment, and I've been doing all kinds of weird stuff, so it might have to do with that. But generally, a vanilla install, it should be okay. Certificates and whatnot, and monitor disk. There's a bunch of stuff that you can look here and under summary. I think I'm pretty much done at this point. I'm going to close this, and then I'm going to close this down. Let's see. Plugin Site Recovery Manager has been successfully undeployed. Refresh the browser to remove it. Okay, let's click on that. Now, I'm going to, and I found that a little weird because it's still there actually. Let's go into here. But it's now, if I go into here, let's go into Site Recovery. Actually, you know what? I'm going to completely close my browser and then and go back in. I always like to do that just to be on the safe side, especially if there's some kind of caching issue going on here, right? So let me, no, I don't want to do an update. Let's go into my Site A vCenter server. Here we go. All right. So you'll see I got my Site Recovery Manager appliance and a vSphere replication appliance deployed. Let's go into here, the main menu. We see Site Recovery, and then under here, this is the big $1 million question. Notice it says here Site Recovery, okay. vSphere replication, okay. That's what I'm looking for, right? Now, what I do is I do that exact same thing, what I just did here, on Site B with the appropriate fully qualified domain names and IP addresses for SRM and the replication appliance on Site B. I've already done that. So what's our next step? All right, so what is our next step here? Let's open up Site Recovery. And it's going to give me, this is going to be the Site Recovery Manager client. I'll click on that. And what it's really going to ask me to do is pair it, right? New site pair, right? Because we're pairing sites, all right? So notice it says connect to VMware Live Recovery. I'm not going to worry about that. Click on site pair. Now at that point, pair, it says select the local vCenter server. I'm on Site A. This is my vCenter server at Site A. I can say pair it with a vCenter server located in a different single sign-on domain. Yeah, that's what I want. Or pair it with a vCenter server located in the same single sign-on domain. My environment, I'm not doing link mode or anything like that. Okay, so I'm not doing enhanced link mode, so it's a different single sign-on domain. But you could. I'm going to click next. Now it's asking me, all right, what is the platform services controller of that other site? So I'm going to call it site B-vCenter server appliance-1.vclass.local. That's the platform services controller of that. And it's going to ask me for administrator. I'll say find vCenter instance. Comes up and say, hey, this is a thumbprint I found. So I'm going to click on connect. Now it says, hey, this platform services controller up here you typed in has this vCenter server with it. And that's site B vCenter server. That's exactly what I want to pair it with. I'll go next. Then it says the following extensions were identified. Select the ones that you want to pair. So I want to basically pair Site Recovery Manager, and I'm going to pair the vSphere replication as well. All right. Actually, I'm just going to do the Site Recovery Manager. Let's just do that. I'm going to go next. I'm going to say connect. As it says connect, and then I go finish. And we give it a few seconds. You see down here. So now we see we've got my Site Recovery Manager for Site A and Site B. Okay, now, I got no recovery plans. We haven't done anything. I got no replications going on. We're still setting things up. Now, what I need to do now is pair up the appliances. Now, I could have done that at that point. I decided not to, just to show you, just in case you did things in a different order, right? So I'm going to say new site pair. And again, this is my site A, same as before. The platform service controller, site B dash vCenter server appliance vclass.local. Whoops. Typing too fast. I'll put in my administrator and go, there we go. Connect. And then this is site B I want to go to it. Now I'm actually pairing. Remember I did my SRM appliances. Now I'm pairing the replication appliances because I'm using vSphere replication. There we go. That's what I want to pair with. Okay? And I'll go next. Now I could have done it at that point, right? So, but since let's say I was just using array-based replication, hardware replication, I didn't have to do that second step. I did not have to install the vSphere replication appliances, right? All I had to do is install Site Recovery Manager appliance on one site, Site Recovery Manager on the other site, pair them, done. And then I start configuring it, which will be another video. Since I am using vSphere replication, I need to repeat that process twice, right? Site Recovery Manager at both sites, pair them. vSphere replication, both sites, pair them. That's what was going on. But that's pretty much it. Let me go into View Details. Notice over here, Site Recovery Manager, vSphere replication, nothing's configured. I'll click on View Details. It's asking me to authenticate to Site B now. You'll usually get that the first time you do this. I'll say Login. And at that point, you see this is the main screen for Site Recovery Manager. You'll see there's a whole bunch of stuff down here on the left, and I'll walk you through that. You got recovery plans, protection groups, replications. We have our site pairs and whatnot. Okay, we'll go through these in separate videos, but this is how you set it up and get it running. All right, so our next video we'll talk about resource mappings and all that. So there's still some more configurations that we have to do before we actually start protecting our VMs and allow them to fail over. Okay, but that's it for now. Hey, if you enjoyed this, please hit that thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. Helps out with the YouTube analytics. Also, support the channel by subscribing to it. That really helps out a lot. Again, without subscribers, there's no content developers, all right? So please hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends. Also, I got super thanks enabled. Totally up to you. Leave comments and questions down below. More to follow on this subject very soon. See you in the next one. Bye now.